Welcome to the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse, where host Michael Liner talks to the best in the business about community, impact, business, and donuts. Here's your host, Michael Liner.
So welcome to another episode of the Triple D Podcast. I've got an excellent guest this week, John Hyman. John, tell us a little bit about yourself for our listeners who may not be familiar with you and what you do.
So I'm a lawyer, obviously. I guess that goes without saying.
Ta-da!
Here I am. I'm a shareholder at Wickens, Herzer, Panza. We are located out in Avon. If you've driven down 90 west from Cleveland,
I've seen your building.
we're there,
South.
Conveniently placed between Walmart and Cabela's.
People can't miss that building.
No, which we like. It's good. It's good advertising.
Yeah.
For that nice sign coming off of 90. I'm an employment lawyer. I've been practicing management side employment law for 26 years now. My employment law practice is kind of nicely split, kind of half transactional. So writing handbooks and policies, doing internal investigations, working on employment issues in like mergers and acquisitions, the voice on the end of the phone, like an outside in-house counsel almost. The voice on the end of the phone when someone needs to hire someone, fire someone, investigate someone, discipline someone, whatever.
You know, I hear people saying variations of this in all industries, but have employees gotten crazier in the last 3 or 4 years? Are you hearing things from your clients that you never heard before about issues that they're having in the workplace?
Yeah. Yes. And I see that on the litigation half of my practice as well. My practice is kind of half this general counsel role and then half litigation. Yeah, people have gotten nuts. Now, I don't know if it's from being that period of lockdown when people were kind of in their homes, and I don't know if that, people have, and I think as we, as a society, have gotten more polarized in our beliefs, definitely for the worse, that I think carries over into the workplace, and I think that comes through in kind of what I see on a day-to-day basis as well.
You know, it feels like in the last several years, and part of this is my recognition and awareness of as an employer, but also, you know, reading what's in the media, that there's almost been like a workers' revolution in the last several years where wages to get people to work have had to go way up. And there's also, at the same time as people are demanding more money, they're also demanding, you know, more from their employers in terms of what they expect when they're at work. Is that sort of what's consistent with what you're seeing?
For sure. I mean, you see it come through, particularly as you've seen employers that have traditionally been thought of as like good employers. Like Starbucks is thought of as a progressive, good company to work for. Apple, progressive, good. Trader Joe's. These are like thought of as progressive businesses that their employees are saying, not good enough. We want control. We want more. We want to. Wages is like a really small part of it, I think. I think what you're seeing really is a perception by employees that they're not respected, they're not cared for, they don't have a voice, and that's what they want. They want respect, they want a voice at the table, and they are kind of coming together either with a union or without a union to demand that seat at the table and get more from their employers.
And what are you noticing from your clients? What are they doing to adjust to that?
If you want to maintain positive employee relations, you got to treat your people well. And again, pay is a part of that.
Right.
You want to pay your people well. That's how that's kind of step one in hiring and retaining workers is pay. But no one's going to stay long just for a paycheck. They need to feel that respect. They need to feel that they have a voice. They need to feel that they are trusted and valued. And the businesses that do that well are the ones that are best at kind of keeping and retaining workers.
Yeah, it's interesting because I even think, and mind you, you know, I'm a smaller employer. We have around 35 to 40 people typically in my office. But the things that we've come up with in the last few years to try and give that feeling back, you know, we started like a culture committee in the office and things that I just never even would have thought of before. Maybe part of it is just the growth over time, but also I don't think there were many businesses anywhere 5-10 years ago that would have had a culture committee and a planning committee for all the office folks.
It's like the old school way of thought is, I'm the boss, I sign the paycheck, you work for me, you should be happy to have a job. Come do your 8 and 40 and go.
Yeah.
Right. That's not good enough anymore.
Right.
And we've done the same thing. So we're a little bigger, but not much bigger than you guys.
Right.
In terms of number of employees. And we've, for our staff, we adopted a hybrid model because it's something that they wanted. So we now 3 days in the office, 2 days at home on a schedule for our workers because it's something that they wanted, and we needed to do it to retain people. We've done things like we now will have monthly or semi-monthly happy hours in the office.
Yeah,
for just to build a little bit of community among our employees.
Very, very, very similar. I mean, even though we have an office space that is here, we have employees. What's cool is the shift. So, we have a federal practice area, so we're able to handle disability cases all over the country, and we do. And we, I almost feel selfish saying this, but in a way, COVID was one of the better things that's happened to our practice because all of our hearings are on the phone, some are on video, almost nothing is in person anymore, which means I can help somebody in California just as easily as I can help somebody who lives across the street from my office. But I'm also now able to employ people all across the country. So, to work for my firm, and I assume it was similar in your firm, it was who are the best people that live within a 25-mile radius of where we are. But now with teleworking, when we are hiring, I'm taking resumes from people in every corner of the country. We've got employees that don't even work in this country that are foreign. And building culture that way is a challenge, but it really has allowed us to, grow. And, we got to get back to those basics where you talk about, we've got to have happy hours and things like that to remind people we're still here. There's only like 5 or 6 people coming into my office every day.
I thought when COVID started, I've been a proponent of remote work for as long as I've been a lawyer. And when COVID started, I was like, we're finally going to have the remote work revolution.
Yeah.
Like this is finally going to change the mindset from, you need to be like wedded to an office, butt in a seat in a physical location to be a productive employee. And obviously COVID kind of blew up that myth, right? And so now we have had this kind of paradigm shift where you can, work for a business and not physically be in the business. But I also thought that I was going to love being a remote worker, and I freaking hated it. I really did not like it at all because I felt isolated working in my home.
Yeah.
And not being around my coworkers. And when I came over, I joined Wickens in March of 2021 from another firm.
Sure.
And when I started in March of 2021, even though the firm was technically still closed, we didn't officially reopen for in-person work until July of 21. But I decided when I joined in March, I was brought in to run our labor and employment practice and to help build it. And I decided that I can't do that, and I can't be a shareholder and own part of the business and run this practice if I don't know the people that I work with. And so I decided that it was important to me to work in the office so I could get to know people, get to know processes, get to know systems, get to know kind of the feel of the firm.
Yeah.
And I never obviously I have the flexibility to work from home when I need to, but my preference is to be in the office, and that's where you'll typically find me.
Now, are you hearing similar stories from the clients that you represent? Tell us what's like a typical client. I'm not asking for the name of a business, but is there like a profile of a client that you would call your niche area who you tend to work with in terms of their size, their industry?
Yeah, 500 and under employees, so a business with less than 500 employees. I like working with manufacturing clients typically because they have the most issues with their workers. And so I find that to be the most interesting type of client to work for. I've also, coming out of COVID, so I'll tell you a really brief story of how I kind of got into this particular line of work I'm going to talk about. But when COVID started and we all went into lockdown, I started getting calls 24/7 from businesses for help with their COVID stuff. We need work from home policies, we need mask policies, then we needed vaccine policies, all the stuff that went with the pandemic. And I was a COVID lawyer for like 12 to 18 months, and it was the busiest I've ever been in my career. I was working partly because I was at home and there was like you couldn't turn it off, like you were just working. But I was working, 14, 15, 16, sometimes 18-hour days, just almost around the clock, handling this COVID stuff for businesses. And when we started to come out of the pandemic and life started to return to whatever normal now is for life after the pandemic, and that work slowed down, I started thinking, okay, so I kind of created this niche for myself, and I was the busiest I've ever been. So where's the next niche I'm going to try and carve out for myself? And I looked at my kind of book of clients and saw that I represented and still do several craft breweries in the area. And so I put together,
as we're here at
Brewnuts,
combining our loves, your love of
donuts and beer.
Donuts. We'll meet here in the middle.
And so I love representing those businesses as well. It's a really fun trade to play in. They are really fun, engaging clients. Obviously, I mean, I like beer. That's why I like representing those businesses. But they are really interesting clients because a lot of the businesses are really good at brewing beer, but a lot of them don't have a ton of business background.
Right.
And so they really need a lot of hand-holding, which creates a lot of opportunities, which is really nice.
They're artists.
Yes.
Is that a fair way?
Yeah, they are. Artists, chemists, a little bit of both.
Right.
A little bit of artistry, a little bit of chemistry puts out a great pint of beer. So
And let's be realistic. We can edit this part out. Now you're able to write off all your visits to the breweries. Every night you're going to a new brewery and saying, don't worry, we got this.
We were this you can keep in, this is fine, but we're doing our budget for the year for 2024, and
it's a lot of
I got accepted. So I'm speaking in April at the National Craft Brewers Conference, which is in Las Vegas. And so I'm like, as we're budgeting, as we're doing our 2024 budget, I'm like, does this go under is this marketing? Is this travel? Like, where do we, like, what line items does this go under? And one of my fellow shareholders said it should go under the boondoggle line item, which is fair. But, someone's got to do it. So if it's not me speaking on the issues I'm going to speak at, another lawyer's going to do it.
Right.
And they're going to be the one in front of those potential clients. So it might as well be me. So what the heck?
Now, with, you're an Ohio lawyer. Are you working with breweries across the country, or is it more focused on local representation?
It's both.
Okay.
So there's certain things that I'm not comfortable doing outside of Ohio.
Okay.
So, and frankly, those clients would be better served with a local attorney. So if they're dealing with like their state liquor control board, I have relationships with people in Columbus for my Ohio clients, but I don't have the same type of relationships with a brewery with an agency in Colorado or California or Mississippi or wherever. So those clients would be better served dealing with a local attorney. Now, my platform, I'm networked all over the country.
Yeah.
So if a brewery in New York calls me and says, John, we have this issue, I can find them a lawyer in New York that will help them solve their problem. But on the issues that I am comfortable handling, so if you need a handbook written, for example, if you have an employee issue, if you want to sell your brewery, like those are things I can help you with. But some of the more state-specific licensing and other issues, I'm more comfortable, and the client should be more comfortable having someone local handle that.
You've talked about a few different kind of like niches that you've developed. Being a COVID lawyer for a year and a half, now trying to be the brewery lawyer. And I understand that you do a lot of the marketing for your entire firm, right?
Yeah, I'm the shareholder that's charged with running marketing and business development for the firm.
Tell me what platforms you have found to be most effective to help you develop these practice areas. I mean, I know that you talked about speaking at a conference in Las Vegas, so education, marketing.
I do a lot of speaking. I'm just naturally comfortable, like up in front of a crowd, talking about what I know. So I do that a lot. It got obviously more difficult during the pandemic. I did a lot of webinars during the pandemic, but I like being at a conference in front of a group, talking, doing the mingling before, the mingling after. Yeah. I'm really good at that. I like doing that, and I put a lot of my marketing and business development energies in that direction. I do a lot of writing and publishing on the social platforms.
Okay,
so I've written a blog now for 16 years.
I know blogging was 16 years old.
Yeah, it's the Ohio Employer Law blog. It's.
Were you with Al Gore when he invented the internet?
I was. I'm older than I look.
We're serving him beer in the back.
I am older.
Pushing Al.
I am older than I look. And I write Monday through Friday, and it is like an encyclopedia of employment law now. But the focus of that has shifted in the last 3 or 4 years to where I used to have. I considered the blog like the hub of all my content, online marketing, and then everything. Twitter, when I was still on Twitter, I'm not. I can't do Elon, so I'm on. But Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, all kind of fed back to that. I still maintain the blog, and content goes on there every day because I have a dedicated list of people that I know get it every day and rely on it.
Yeah.
But I focus now. The online marketing is now really hyper focused on LinkedIn, and I've built a really nice community and following on LinkedIn that networks me. I mean, I'm networked on LinkedIn to tens of thousands of people all over the country. And so from a content standpoint, that is the primary focus of what I do from a content standpoint is on LinkedIn. And then like everything else, I mean, business development is relationally based. So whether it's and I get a ton of referrals from people from LinkedIn, and so I use that a lot, and I found that to be very effective. But then it's just the people the clients that you do good work for that can introduce you to other people, the people you meet at events that you can then follow up with, and maybe you don't have a need, but who do you know who has a need, and can you connect me, to so-and-so or whatever. I mean, everything's about relationships.
Tell me about, so it sounds like so many of the relationships are built on the content, though. So you create the content, you put it out there, people see it, and then that kind of opens a door to creating that personal relationship. What's the process, if you don't mind sharing, for the content? So you write every day.
Every day.
Tell me about that.
Thankfully, employment law is quite the fertile field for things to write on. It's really rare that I have writer's block or don't have something to write about in a given day. And then I'm up early in the morning. I'm usually downstairs on the couch by 6 or 6:30, ready to go for my day. And that first hour of the day is kind of my writing time. And people say to me, like, it must take you forever to do this, and where do you find the time? I've been doing it for so long that it's almost on autopilot at this point. Like I can get a post written where I'm comfortable, and you're not looking. I'm not writing law review articles. You're not, or journal articles. I'm not looking for perfection.
It's your opinion.
Well, it's my opinion, but it's one really narrow point. Maybe it's a case that I'm writing about, but I'm not doing a case study summary of the case. It's here's 2 sentences about the facts. Here's what the court said. Here's what the court held. And here's a paragraph about why this matters to your business and what this means to your business, what you should be doing, what you should change. So like yesterday, for example, I wrote about Corky Lenny's, which is sadly out of business, which is awful.
I used to go there every single morning.
I used to work at a firm out in Woodmere, and so like a block up the road, and had many, many meals at Corky's. Best matzo ball soup in Cleveland, hands down. So anyway,
a lot of, you're from Philadelphia. There's a lot of good places.
A lot of good. Like Corky's had that East Coast kind of diner feel,
right?
But Corky's also just got sued by a group of employees for not paying them for working through their lunch breaks, and so the title of the post was "This is what it looks like when you kick a business when it's down" or something like that, and it was, 67-year-old Cleveland diner Corky and Lenny's sadly closed. 3 days later, an employee filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they weren't paid for working through their lunch break. This is the rule of when you do or don't have to pay an employee, and this is what you should look for in your business. It took all of 20 minutes to write.
Right.
And it was, engaged with thousands of times on LinkedIn.
You take this piece of writing, you add it to your blog. Do you take the same piece of writing to add to LinkedIn?
Oh, yeah, I'm not doing it twice.
Okay. I just didn't know if there were different platforms.
No, I'm not doing it. I'm not looking to do it twice.
So you mentioned the socials. Is it really just focused on LinkedIn, or do you somehow create video content and chop it up in other ways? What are you doing with it?
I've dabbled with video and have never really had a ton of success with it. I thought about doing a podcast, but never really got that to the point where it was worthwhile for me to do. I have a podcast with my daughter, but that's not a legal podcast. That's just me and my 17-year-old just BSing about. So there's a podcast I've listened to for years called Rocked in the Suburbs. Okay. It's like two middle-aged guys who talk about music, and their musical taste is right in line with mine. Okay. And I've listened to them for years. My daughter, my 17-year-old's a musician. During lockdown, I connected her with the podcast. They did a Friday night song circle on Zoom. She was dying for people to play music with because we were locked in the house. And so it was then my 14-year-old daughter on a Zoom call every Friday night with a bunch of 40 to 60-year-old guys playing music.
Is this a Cleveland podcast?
No, they're based out of, I think they're based out of Northern Virginia, DC suburbs. So two years ago, right around this time of the year, they went on, and they podcast 5 days a week.
Yeah.
They were going on vacation, and they put a thing out on their Facebook or wherever saying, we're looking for guest hosts while we're on vacation for December. If you want to be a guest, just record an episode and send it in. So I said to my daughter, who was my concert buddy, I said, do you want to do this? We can do a podcast about concerts we've been to together, whatever. She goes, yeah, let's do it. So we did it. They aired it. But when we were done recording, she was like, this was really fun. We should start a podcast. So we did. And we talk about just...
What's it called? Promo.
It's called the Nora and Dad Show. It's on a bit of...
Dad, original name.
It's on a bit of a hiatus right now. But there's I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 episodes in the can.
Wow.
Talking about stuff in our lives. We talk about, family
turkey suck.
Nah, I'm the cook, so it's not mobster. Family vacations, pets, holidays, stuff going on in school, her music, whatever. So,
what inspires you and her to decide, hey, let's go record right now?
I usually nag her to record, like any good teenager.
Do you have a full setup in your house?
We actually do it remotely in our home.
So over Zoom,
we do it over. I use an app called Squadcast, which lets you record remotely. It separates the audio into 2 tracks, and then you kind of merge it together. And I do a quick edit and throw it up. So
can if I listen, could I hear you guys yelling to your wife or your other? You've got a son too. Hey, turn it down, keep it down.
No, they know when we're recording.
They know.
So yeah, I'm in the study with the door closed. She's in her bedroom.
That's great.
Yeah, it's usually pretty quiet. So
that's great. So, where do you see yourself heading with your practice? I mean, is the craft brew something that you could really niche down and spend all your time on that? What percentage of what you're doing is that type of work?
I mean, right now it's probably somewhere between 10 to 20% of my work is in that space.
Yeah.
I'd like to get it to where it's maybe half of the work that I'm doing, and the other half I would love to just be the counseling work I do for businesses. Litigation pays the bills. but litigation is a grind. So I still litigate. I would like to get to where I can delegate the litigation work to other people, kind of supervise that work, come in and try cases because I still love trying cases.
Yeah.
Take the depositions that need to be taken, try the cases because I enjoy that, and kind of push the rest of the work off down that I'm doing right now.
So you mentioned you've been with your current firm now for almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
And you were with another practice for, I don't know if your whole history, if you've been in several places.
I've been in several places.
How does that work? Like what's the difference in terms of a platform that one firm will offer you that makes you say, maybe this is an opportunity I want to investigate?
It's really interesting. I started when I was a brand new associate out of law school, started at a labor and employment boutique in downtown Cleveland. All they did was labor and employment.
Okay.
40 or 50 lawyers, management side labor and employment. That's all they did. It was like working at any, even though there was only 40 or 50 lawyers, it was like working at any other big firm in Cleveland because they were the biggest labor and employment department in the city.
Gotcha.
So it was like working at a labor and employment at pick any of your, AmLaw 200 firms that are downtown, right? And it burns you out. It burns you out quick. And so I went from there. I wanted more kind of hands-on experience. And so I went from there to an insurance defense firm and did insurance defense work for like 5 or 6 years.
And you were actually doing the insurance defense work.
I was actually doing the insurance defense work. When you as a firm have a contract with an insurance company that says we're going to pay you $125 an hour to defend this claim, who's going to get the work? The fourth-year associate. That's just the way it is. And so you were kind of thrown in the deep end, which is, in all candor, not always great for the client, but it's a great way to learn because you learn by doing. And so I learned a lot. I tried a lot of cases and I learned a lot, but it also burns you out.
Sure.
So I went from there to a corporate boutique and then to another corporate boutique and now to as I said, I worked down the road from Corky's out east. I'm a West Sider. I wanted to get back west. I felt that it was, from a marketing standpoint, it was better for me as a marketer to build my practice, to be where my community ties are. And it was hard on the east side to do that. It was hard to build being a West Sider was hard to build a practicing on the east side because the river is real. And, people that aren't from Cleveland don't get the divide, but the river's real. And so it was easier for me. And, I was January 2020 or January 2021. I was sitting at home in my kitchen. My wife had to study. I had the kitchen island was my office during lockdown, and my phone rang, and it said potential spam on my iPhone, which I would almost always send to voicemail, and I hit the wrong button, and I answered the phone by accident, and it was a legal recruiter saying, I have an opportunity with a West Side firm. You're a good fit. Would you be interested in talking to them? And I said, I don't know, because I was really happy where I wasn't looking to make a move. I was happy where I was. There was nothing saying to me, John, it's time to move. You need something different. At least I didn't think I did. I said, let me call you back. So I went into the study. I said to my wife, I said, I just had the weirdest call. What do you think? And she goes, take the meeting. What do you have to lose? Right. So I called the recruiter back. I took the meeting. And 6 weeks later, I was sitting in my new office. Wow. So it's really, and it was the best decision of my career.
Really?
It is, it's given me a platform and support that I've never had before. It gave me a seat at the table in the boardroom, which I didn't have at my old firm. It gave me some skin in the game, none of which I had, and which I didn't think I necessarily wanted or needed. But as it turns out, I did, and I do. So it was, without a doubt, the best move I could have possibly made. And 3 years later, zero regrets. It's a wonderful place to work with wonderful people, and I'm not just saying that because they're going to be listening.
Yeah. I promise. The last thing that I wanted to ask you about before we sample these delicious donuts in front of us. So, my practice is focused on disability law, which is employers aren't really dealing specifically with what I am. But when it comes to advising employers on disability policies, because I'm sure in some context you've done that in your career, are there like general guidelines or principles that you follow or tell people that they need to fall in line with?
I mean, we deal with it typically. We'll deal with it where we have an injured or sick employee who might be out on FMLA. If the business, for example, has a short-term disability, that's easy. We can run that short-term disability concurrently with an FMLA leave. It'll give the employee some income while they're out on FMLA. Then it transitions to long-term disability. If there's a long-term disability policy in place, then it becomes a little more complicated because now you're really taking the employee out of the workplace at that point.
Yeah.
And that's a decision that an employer can't make for an employee. Right. You can say to the employee, you've purchased this insurance vehicle, or we've made this insurance vehicle available to you. It's something you should consider. You can't forcibly retire an employee. Right. That starts to veer into disability discrimination.
Right.
But for an employee that might not ever be able to come back to work, or might not be able to come back to work in the short term, because you only have an obligation to accommodate them, 12 weeks if you're over 50 employees, 12 weeks under the FMLA, and you're going to have some additional obligations under the ADA to reasonably accommodate beyond FMLA or if FMLA is not in place. But to say to the employee, you have this insurance vehicle available, let's help you tap into that to get you some income so that if you never come back to work, you at least have some income available to you. From a Social Security standpoint, it gets really interesting because once they're applying for Social Security disability, now the employee certifying they can never work.
Right.
And from my viewpoint as the attorney representing the business, that's a really good position for the business to be in.
Sure.
Because even though the Supreme Court has said an employee being on, SSI doesn't conclusively say they are disqualified or they're not qualified under the ADA as someone with a disability that protected by the statute. It's a rebuttable presumption, and it's hard to overcome. And so from my perspective, if I can get an employee on Social Security, it's going to give my client a lot of comfort that they're going to be pretty well insulated from a disability discrimination claim if they don't bring that person back to work.
Is that an Ohio Supreme Court case that talks about that?
U.S. Supreme Court. And I don't know. I'll send it to you. I don't know the name off the top of my head.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, there used to be a circuit split where some circuits said an employee taking Social Security conclusively 100% of the time not qualified under the ADA is disabled.
Right.
Other circuits said it's a rebuttable presumption,
right,
and the Supreme Court sided with the rebuttable presumption.
Yeah, send that to me.
Yeah,
I'd be interested in that. We do a lot of, we probably have the most active ERISA, long-term disability practice in the state, just in terms of like the number of case filings we have in federal court. And have you seen employers tend to be supportive of their employees when they get turned down by the insurance company? Because that's who's doing it. I mean, I guess there are some self-insurance.
Yeah, the employer doesn't have much to do in that. Do in that process. I mean, good employers, and I like. Yeah, I prefer to work with good employers.
Yeah,
they're going to be supportive of their employees in those efforts. I think it's like, if you look at it from a moral standpoint, it's morally the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But from a risk aversion standpoint, like, you don't want to, if you have an employee that applies for long-term disability and, that claim gets denied, and then you kick the employee out, you're setting yourself up for a lawsuit. And maybe it's a defensible lawsuit, maybe it's not. It's gonna hinge on the facts. But whatever goodwill you can buy yourself as a business with your employee in that situation, every ounce of goodwill you can buy is, 10 times return that you're not going to get sued by that employee.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, we've got these delicious
And
glazed donuts here.
They look really good.
We're here at Brewnuts on Detroit Road in Cleveland. And what do you say we taste these and let people know what we've got here?
Yeah.
Should we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do a little donut cheers with me. This is one of my favorite. We'll pretend it's a pint of beer.
Cheers.
Let's see it.
Yeah, you're at it.
First thing I noticed about this donut, the size.
It's a big donut.
This is a big donut. What are your thoughts biting into it?
It's delicious.
Delicious.
It's got the right. I've never done a food review before. It's got the right kind of yeasty consistency for a donut, and I like a thick glaze on a donut, but it's not like overpoweringly sweet. So it's really good.
John, I think you've got a future in these donut reviews. It is delicious, and I'm so grateful for the hospitality of Brewnuts here, and I'm so grateful that I got to hang out with you this morning. So
awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse. Rate, subscribe, and tune in next week for more discourse and donuts.